For over 3,000 years, the golden mask of King Tutankhamun has stared out at the world, hiding a huge secret. We all know the story of the boy king who died way too young, but the biggest question has always been, how? So today, we're reopening this ancient cold case to figure it out. Was it a tragic accident, or was it cold-blooded murder?
I mean, think about it. You have a teenage pharaoh, one of the most powerful people on the planet, and he just drops dead. It's the question that has fueled documentaries, books, and endless debate for decades. Was he a victim of foul play?
All right, let's get to the bottom of this. We're going to treat this just like a modern-day investigation. First up, we need to set the scene of what, for a very long time, really looked like a crime. Okay, so let's meet our victim. This is Tutankhamun. He becomes the pharaoh of Egypt when he's just a kid, and he rules for about 10 years. But then, at only 19 years old, his reign just comes to this sudden, totally mysterious end.
Now, when Howard Carter cracked open that tomb back in 1922, the whole world just went nuts for the incredible golden treasures inside. But the real puzzle, the thing that would kick off a murder investigation that lasted for decades, was the body itself. The very first clues that something was off came from the tomb itself. For one, it was tiny, way too small for a pharaoh. And see these black spots on the walls? That's mold. It grew because the paint was literally still wet when they sealed the tomb. It all points to one thing, a super hasty, rushed burial. And that tells you his death caught everyone completely by surprise. But the real bombshell, the thing that changed everything, came in 1968. Scientists x-rayed the mummy, and what they found was just shocking. Compared to a typical royal mummy, Tuts was a wreck. His skull looked like it had been fractured. His heart, the most important organ for the afterlife, was gone, and his entire sternum and a bunch of ribs were just missing. None of this was standard procedure, not even close. And that fracture on the back of his head, that was the smoking gun, a possible blow to the head. Just like that, this went from being a historical curiosity to being ancient Egypt's greatest whodunit. Okay, so with evidence of foul play now on the table, any good detective asks the same question: who benefits? It is time to line up the usual suspects. Naturally, you have to start with the person closest to the king, his wife, who was also his half-sister, akhenaten. I mean, she was right there, so she definitely had the opportunity. But the real question is, did she actually have a reason to want him gone? Well, a key piece of evidence seems to clear her name completely. It's called the Hittite letter. In this clay tablet, the newly widowed queen is writing to one of Egypt's biggest enemies, the Hittites. And she is desperately begging their king to send one of his sons for her to marry because she's terrified. This doesn't sound like a cunning murderer. It sounds like a woman whose entire world has just been shattered. So, we can probably cross the queen off our list, but that leaves the two most powerful men in the entire kingdom, both of whom had everything to gain from Tut's death: his chief advisor, A, and his top general, Horemheb. And believe me, the motives here are strong. I, the advisor, not only becomes the very next pharaoh, but he's the one who buries Tut in that tiny tomb, maybe because he wanted to save the bigger, grander one for himself. And then you've got Horemheb, the general, who later tries to literally erase Tut from history, chiseling his name off monuments and replacing it with his own. And guess what? Both of these guys ended up becoming pharaohs. So, for more than 30 years, the case against I and Horemheb looked pretty solid. It was a classic power grab, a story of ambition and murder. But then, modern forensics stepped into the tomb, and the entire story got turned completely on its head. You can see right here how technology gave investigators a whole new set of eyes. That first X-ray back in '68 is what kicked off the whole murder theory. But then came high-def CT scans in 2005, and later DNA analysis. It allowed scientists to perform basically a virtual autopsy, and what they found told a totally different story. So what about that smoking gun fracture, that supposed blow to the head? Well, the new, much more detailed scans showed that the damage almost certainly wasn't from an attack. Instead, it was probably caused after he died by the embalmers during the, let's say, messy process of removing his brain. Just like that, the single biggest piece of evidence for the murder case, it just fell apart. So if it wasn't murder, what in the world actually killed him? The answer, it turns out, was a perfect storm of awful medical problems. First, DNA showed he was genetically frail from generations of royal inbreeding, which even caused him to have a club foot. On top of that, CT scans confirmed he suffered a nasty fracture to his leg that became horribly infected. And as if that wasn't enough, he was also fighting off a severe case of malaria at the same time.
So you see, it wasn't just one thing that killed King Tut. It was this cascade of terrible health crises all hitting a young man with a really weak immune system at the exact same time. Honestly, any one of these problems could have been a huge deal, but all of them together? It was a death sentence.
So, the murder case is officially closed. But that doesn't mean the story is over. Not by a long shot. What his life and death tell us is still incredibly powerful. The verdict from modern science is crystal clear. Tutankhamun was not murdered. He was a victim of a terrible accident and a whole collection of diseases. His powerful advisors, A and Horemheb, they were ambitious, sure, but they weren't killers. And yet, for over 100 years now, his story has absolutely fascinated us. The boy king has become way more famous in death than he ever was in his short life. He's become a true icon of the ancient world.
In the end, maybe the real takeaway from this whole cold case is a pretty humbling one. It shows that all the gold, all the power, and all the belief that you're a living god, none of it could protect a pharaoh from the invisible killers of the ancient world, like a simple infection. So yeah, we can finally close the book on the murder mystery. But his story leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? It really makes you wonder, in a world of gods and pharaohs, were the deadliest threats of all, the ones you could never even see coming,